On this episode of RevHang, Ben and I talk about the MotoGP Dutch Grand Prix, the Honda 200 at Mid-Ohio, and the British Grand Prix. Let's do it. Hello everybody and welcome to RevHang. I'm your host Nathan Nebu, and alongside me today is my fellow gearhead and co-host Ben Bagley. How are you, Ben? It's been a few weeks.
I'm back. It feels good to be sitting in one place for a little bit. It's been a busy past few weeks.
Yeah, you've been really busy the past couple weeks. You've been on a trip with your race car, right?
Yeah, so we had the Formula SE West competition in Michigan, the westernmost state in the United States. We had a non-stop drive there. We had problems with our muffler and just couldn't get the noise down. Back pressure issues, couldn't pass brake test. It was a whole thing, but it was a good time. It was sunny, nice. Got to go see some pretty nice states. Michigan's actually a really cool place around Michigan International Speedway. And actually getting to go up onto the banking, it's pretty incredible. It's a really, really steep bank. So that was pretty neat. And then on the way back, we took it a little bit slower because we had COVID. So
Oh no.
it was a really interesting balance of cool scenery, and also we could barely keep ourselves together on the way back. But we made it back, started my new job, and I managed to graduate with some kind of degree, allegedly. So all's good.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's great to hear. I'm glad you had fun. But we got some great racing and races to go over this week, so let's just jump right in.
Alrighty.
We'll start with MotoGP. This time around, it was the Dutch Grand Prix in Assen, the Netherlands. We'll go over the top 10 in qualifying, so you have some context for the race. In first place was Francesco Bagnaia, followed by Fabio Quartararo, Jorge Martin, Marco Bezzecchi, Aleix Espargaro, Jack Miller, Johan Zarco, Miguel Oliveira, Alex Rins, and rounding out the top 10 was Brad Binder. So this race was kind of business as usual for the whole race, except there were some notable crashes. Bagnaia got a great start, got the field pretty early, and never lost the lead after that. Espargaro and Quartararo had a pretty good fight over the first 3 laps, but then Quartararo went for a move on the 5th lap on Espargaro and made contact and skidded out into the gravel trap, which kind of ruined both of the riders' races. Supposedly, Espargaro was off the track, but he managed to keep the bike upright and continue. He just dropped down to, I think, 15th after Quartararo hit him. Quartararo dropped to the back and had a lot of damage on his bike, so his race was pretty much over. After that, Franco Morbidelli slid out in turn 5 in the same corner. On lap 9, Darren Bender slid out, also in turn 5, I believe. So that was kind of a problem corner for a lot of riders this week.
Yeah, it looked pretty slick watching some of the replays.
Yeah, it was pretty slippery. On lap 13, Fabio Quartararo had another crashed twice in one race. The bike kind of just high-sided a little bit and bucked him off on the throttle, and he landed on the track pretty hard, and looks like he was pretty slow to get up, but looks like he was, after the race, he was talking to his team, and he seemed okay, but he took quite a hit.
Yeah, man, he lost all hope, loses last little bit of hope he didn't know he had.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a rough race for him. Not ideal for the championship leader, so I believe his championship lead dropped down to like 30 points, so he's still got quite a margin.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a feat for people to catch him. Even if Bagnaia was, a solid half second ahead of everybody for the entire race.
Yeah. Aleix Espargaro, even though he dropped down to 15th at the beginning of the race, he cut his way through the field and ended up fighting for a podium spot at the end. It was pretty crazy. Bezzecchi and Vinales, the two Ducati riders, held on to second and third for the whole race, behind Bagnaia. So that was the podium. It was a 1-2-3 for Ducati. But then over the line, Aleix Espargaro finished fourth after making a crazy double overtake on the last corner of the last lap. It was pretty insane. He overtook Brad Binder and Jack Miller. It was he dove down the inside of both riders into one of the tightest chicanes on the calendar, and I've never seen a move like that in a MotoGP race before.
Yeah, despite his not finishing on the podium, Espargaro is probably the best part of the race to watch for me.
Yeah, very exciting stuff from him. He was definitely fun to watch. So great race from Espargaro, even though it probably could have been more if he had stayed upright, or if he had stayed on the track after Quartararo nudged him off.
Yep. Yeah.
We'll go over the results.
Not that Ducati minded too much about that.
Yeah, no, Ducati had quite the race, scoring tons of points in the championship battle. But the results, starting in first place, was Francesco Bagnaia, followed by Marco Bezzecchi, Maverick Vinales, Aleix Espargaro, Brad Binder, Jack Miller, Jorge Martin, Joan Mir, Miguel Oliveira, and Alex Rins rounding out the top 10. In 11th was Enea Bastianini, followed by Taka Nakagami, Johan Zarco, Fabio Di Gianantonio, Alex Marquez, Andrea Dovizioso, Luca Marini, Stefan Bradel, Remy Gardner, and Lorenzo Zavadori, rounding out the finishers, and that's the top 20. And we had 4 DNFs this race, with Raul Fernandez, Fabio Quartararo, Darren Binder, and Franco Morbidelli. All right, let's move on to IndyCar.
Time? Yeah,
IndyCar time. Let's go.
What do you think about Mid-Ohio as the track?
Looks like pretty similar to Road America. It's lots of hills. It just looks like kind of a classic American track. The road's like kind of cracked and bumpy.
Yep. Kind of like the highways through Ohio, actually, yeah.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, right?
I got some experience with that, and I gotta say, this track has the most elevation change I've ever seen in Ohio.
Yeah. There's not much.
No, but actually, I really like this track.
Yeah, it's a good one for sure. We were at Mid-Ohio for the Honda Indy 200 in Lexington, Ohio. Qualifying top 10 real quick was Pato O'Ward on pole, followed by Scott McLaughlin, Colton Herta, Felix Rosenqvist, Scott Dixon, Simon Pagenaud, Alex Palou, David Malukas, Kyle Kirkwood, and Callum Eilert. This race was pretty crazy to start out with, and then there was some drama with a lot of the kind of protagonists of IndyCar. It was a fun one to watch for sure.
Oh yeah, and those first few laps, the top 5, they were so close. Pato O'Ward did a great job holding them all off for as long as he could until he started having gearbox problems.
Yeah, not so unfortunate for Pato, because he had that engine failure last race. I mean, so 2 DNFs in a row is not what he wants for his season when he's fighting for the championship.
No, not at all.
But yeah, everybody really got their elbows out at the beginning, and it was really good racing from everybody. Like Will Power really made quite a dive bomb at the beginning, but unfortunately made contact with the guy and spun out. He was able to keep it going though, and had a pretty good race from there actually.
Yeah, absolutely charged back. Opposite of Colin Herta, who had honestly a pretty great race the entire way through. Which is something that's been a little bit inconsistent from him in past races. And then got caught out during yellow and didn't make it into the pit, and then that kind of tanked his race from there.
Yeah. Yeah, he also had a moment at the end. I think he went off.
Yeah. That was just lemon juice in the wound at that point.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we had Felix Rosenqvist also had a mechanical failure, so that's both McLarens with mechanical failures that race. And as a McLaren fan, that was painful. Very painful. So, yep, the Kyle Kirkwood also crashed and caused a yellow. But like you said, it was awesome racing at the front between Herta, Pagano, Palou, McLaughlin, O'Ward. Like, everybody was up there, and everyone was right there in it. So, super exciting to watch all that happen. One notable thing, Alexander Rossi had a bit of
Oh
a
man,
tussle with his teammate Roman Grosjean twice.
he was having tussles with everyone.
Yeah.
Because didn't he get a little elbows out with Herta at some point too, or am I thinking of
Yeah, I
someone
think
else?
so.
Yeah, so the Andretti siblings on track will likely have a talk with Dad when they get back. Or they likely did.
Yeah, I'm sure. But yeah, the second time, like the first time, it was kind of just they bumped wheels and Grosjean had two wheels off the track, and it was kind of just friendly, like, well, not even friendly. That was just a
Yeah.
nudge, like, hey, I'm here, don't try to pass me.
Racing incident, yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. And then the next one, Rossi hit Grosjean. It sent them both straight on at the corner off the track.
Oh, yeah.
Rossi lost control of the steering wheel, and so he just kept going straight, which kept pushing Grosjean further and further off the track and into the wall eventually.
Yeah. Yeah, Rossi just went so wide on that corner. He probably had, two car widths on the inside that he could have cheated in, but he just left Grosjean no space.
Yeah. So unfortunately, Grosjean ended up in the wall and kind of got sent to the back of the grid through no fault of his own. That was not what Andretti wanted to see this week.
No, that was a terrible result for Andretti Racing this weekend.
Yeah, but it was a great result for Scott McLaughlin, who won his first IndyCar race ever. He was just a rookie last year, so he is
managed to
quickly
hold off
rising.
Yeah, and he managed to hold off Alex Palou, who's kind of been his benchmark as a rookie in a similar spot this season.
Yep.
Managed to hold him off for the last few laps and just really solid racing, just finished the race, and that was enough, honestly.
Yep. So that wraps up the race. We'll go over the results real fast. In first place was Scott McLaughlin, followed by Alex Palou and Will Power to round off the podium. In fourth place was Rinus VeeKay, followed by Scott Dixon and Marcus Ericsson. And then in seventh was Joseph Newgarden. Helio Castroneves followed in eighth. After that was David Malukas and Simon Pagano rounding off the top 10. And then 11th through 22, rounding off the finishers, were Christian Lundgaard, Graham Rahal, Connor Daly, Takuma Sato, Colton Herta, Jimmy Johnson, Devlin DeFrancesco, Simona De Silvestro, Alexander Rossi, Jack Harvey, Roman Grosjean, and Dalton Kellett. Then we had 5 DNFs this week, with Callum Ilott, Pato O'Ward, Tatiana Calderon, Kyle Kirkwood, and Felix Rosenqvist not finishing the race. All right, Formula One, the British Grand Prix.
Silverstone.
What a banger.
Yeah, that was a really good race.
Yeah, I think that was the best race of the season so far.
Yeah, I think so too, and that seems to be kind of the sentiment among a lot of fans watching the race. Especially because, those last 10 laps were still so close. It was a great example of FIA regulations for the 2022 year actually ended up in some really, really good racing.
Yep, for sure. Before we get into all of our talking points on the race, we'll go through the top 10 in qualifying. It was Sainz, followed by Verstappen, Leclerc, Perez, Hamilton, Norris, Alonso, Russell, Zhou, and Latifi. Notably, Carlos Sainz had his first pole position this week. So, good qualifying for Sainz. It was a wet qualifying, so you got some mix-up at the top, and tends to be the more skilled drivers at the top when it rains. So it matters more the skill of the driver rather than the speed of the car.
Yep. Yeah. Notably, you saw Latifi and Zhou make it into Q3, which was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I think this was this Latifi's first Q3? I think it was.
I'm pretty sure it was, yeah. And it was Zhou's second?
something like that. He's been
Yeah,
up there a couple times though. Yeah.
yeah. He's been having really, he's been doing so well. But well, I'll let you say
Yeah.
why he hasn't been doing so well.
Yeah, well, it's unfortunate because he seems to be a really good driver with like the worst luck ever.
Yeah, yeah. That clover
um,
leaf on the side of his car doesn't seem to be doing anything at all for him.
hmm But yeah, so let's get into that. On the start of the race, AlphaTauri driver Pierre Gasly and George Russell of Mercedes made contact, sending Russell into a spin. Russell then made race-ending contact with Zhou Guanyu of Alfa Romeo, which flipped Zhou's car, sending him sliding upside down across the circuit and through the gravel trap. His car dug into the gravel, which flipped the car up into the air and over the tire barrier and into the catch fence, where it eventually came to rest between the tire barrier and the catch fence, and that trapped him in the car for several minutes. Once the safety marshals extracted him from the car, they sent him straight to the medical center. And unfortunately, he was cleared at the medical center with no injuries, which is just incredible.
Yeah, yeah. Halo taking another W
Oh,
in this
absolutely.
race.
Halo absolutely saved his life. Halo took 2 Ws this week, actually.
Oh
Um,
yeah, you're right.
yeah, because there was an incident in F2 where one of the drivers, one of the cars ended up on top of another car, and Halo was all scraped up, and it would have been pretty bad if it wasn't there.
All hail to the titanium flip flop.
Yes.
Yeah,
um,
but
but
that
yeah.
was a whole just watching it happen. It was such a prolonged event too.
hmm
It started just barely after they started off. Gasly ended up just getting pinched,
Yeah.
and yeah, just flipped Joe up, and Joe ended up just sliding on his on the hoop for just it had to have been like 200 meters at least.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of it was really scary to watch because the roll bar on the top of his car actually broke,
Yeah,
and that's the piece that actually makes sure that the helmet like can't actually hit the ground.
yeah,
And so uh the halo was literally the only thing protecting him, and you could see how close his head was to the ground. It was ridiculous.
yeah. Luckily,
um
like myself, Joe is not a very tall person.
yeah. That, yeah, it could have been a lot worse, but luckily he was okay. um but that wasn't the only incident before turn one. Williams driver Alex Albon was cut off and forced to slow down unexpectedly. And then the Aston Martin of Sebastian Vettel was approaching too fast behind Albon, ended up rear-ending him and sent him into a high-speed spin into the wall. It's just a concrete wall there, so Albon bounced off the wall and settled right in the middle of turn one with 12 cars right there.
Yeah,
uh, so he took out a few cars with him. Pierre Gasly, Yuki Tsunoda, Sebastian Vettel, and Esteban Ocon all had damage after that, but they were all able to continue, luckily for them. But after this whole carnage on the first lap, Russell, Zhou, and Albon were out of the race.
yep, yeah. It was kind of funny watching all the drivers with various amounts of damage. Ocon had like the donut tire that he was riding on. Uh,
hmm
One of the drivers had their front left just riding on their splitter.
Yep, that was Yuki Tsunoda, I think.
Sonoda just around the lap, just kind of dinner plating around. I was surprised that a
Yeah,
lot of cars made it back to the pits as they did, honestly.
yeah, it was kind of crazy. Ocon was going so slow. But luckily the red flag came out after the incident, and as the race was suspended, actually, some protesters broke onto the track and sat down. And that's all we're gonna give to that because that's just stupid and ridiculous, and we don't want to give it more attention than it deserves.
Yeah,
Um, so on the restart after the red flag, Sainz and Verstappen battled pretty hard for first. Sainz really shoved Verstappen to the right side of the track before turn one.
yeah, that was an
Um,
IndyCar battle right there.
yeah, it was pretty crazy. Definitely wheel to wheel, elbows out. Everyone wanted it today.
Yeah. Yeah,
Or
it was
this
great
week.
racing at the front.
Yeah. Leclerc dove down the inside of Perez into turn 4 and made contact with him and damaged the front wings of both cars. Leclerc's came off pretty cleanly, so he was able to continue with damage. But Perez, his wing was kind of just hanging there, so he had to pit for repairs, which kind of almost ruined his race, but he had quite the recovery drive that we'll get to in a little bit.
Yeah, really did.
Yeah. So Verstappen was on Sainz's tail for about 10 laps and pressured him into a mistake. He was able to pass him for the lead. But then, unfortunately, a couple laps later, Verstappen hit a piece of debris which came off of Yuki Tsunoda's car, I believe, which damaged his tires and ripped some rear downforce elements off of his car. And that slowed him down so much.
Yeah, no, it was almost immediate. Once he hit the straight, it looked like he almost came to a stop compared to Sainz.
Yeah, no, I thought maybe his engine blew again or he ran, like something happened. I don't know. He was so slow on the straight. So Sainz was able to pass him, and then Leclerc was able to pass him shortly after that. But also on lap 12, I think Yuki Tsunoda crashed into Pierre Gasly, which big no-no. You don't crash into your teammate.
Yeah, they had a nice synchronized pirouette off the track.
Yep, they both spun in a synchronized spinning for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy that we're only 12 laps in. I remember watching the race, and I was like, man, how are they going to recover from this? With so few laps left. And I looked, and they're on lap like 18 or something. I was like, what?
Yeah. It was kind of, I think it was just because the red flag lasted for like an hour.
Oh, yeah, that was probably it.
It just felt like we were already quite a ways into the race when it had really just started. Yeah, so Sainz led for about 20 laps with Leclerc and Hamilton and Vettel behind him. Hamilton kept setting fastest lap after fastest lap and closed up to the Ferraris. So Ferrari finally, probably a little too late, told Sainz to let the faster car of Charles Leclerc through into the lead to pull away, hopefully, from the Mercedes. But they didn't really. Hamilton was always kind of right there.
Yeah, Hamilton had a really good race.
Yeah, I think Mercedes is kind of back.
I think they're starting to figure out what it takes to build a competitive car.
Yeah. It seems like they're definitely more on pace with the top 3 cars. Still third best, I'd say, but they're definitely right there. Way better than they were at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, and I think the drivers are starting to figure it out too, because you're watching them, they're much faster through the corners than they have been. They're still just lacking on the straights, but in terms of driver skill and how the cars are going through the corners, they're actually able to make up some time on other teams finally.
Yeah, for sure. On lap 39, the Alpine of Esteban Ocon slowed dramatically with an engine problem and then crept to a stop at the end of a straight, which caused a safety car. Sainz, Hamilton, and many other drivers pit for softs with about 10 racing laps left. Leclerc stayed out on old hard tires, and this was the Ferrari blunder of the century.
Yeah, almost sounds like Colton Herta's race.
Yeah, it was like, why didn't they pit him?
Yeah.
They left Leclerc out. Their reasoning was Sainz was close enough to Leclerc to where if they had double stacked the cars in the pits, Sainz would have been held up for a couple seconds. But I think that would have been the lesser of two evils than putting 19 drivers behind Charles Leclerc on fresh soft tires when he's on 20-lap old hard tires.
Yeah. Maybe they had double stacking PTSD from... I don't know.
I don't know. But I think Leclerc could have won the race with Sainz in P2, but that's not what ended up happening. So on the restart, Sainz and Leclerc battle for the lead, and Sainz was able to make quick work of Leclerc, passing him into turn 5, I think. And then he opened up a pretty comfortable gap for the rest of the race. Leclerc and Perez battled each other on lap 45 into the last kind of section of the track, and that brought Hamilton into the fight and actually threw into second place after they both went off the track, fighting each other so hard. That was almost overtake of the week, which we'll get to in a few minutes here. But that was a really great double overtake from Lewis. Perez got his elbows out with Hamilton on the next lap, which let Leclerc pass Hamilton again. It was the last few laps were insane.
They were awesome, yeah.
But one thing, Perez looks so much more confident in this car than he did last year.
Oh yeah.
He's racing with authority, and he knows what he wants, and he's not gonna back down from it.
Yeah, he was so conservative last year with how he drove the car, which was, good enough to get Verstappen to the title, but this year, he's just so much more competitive and taking, not necessarily even risks, but just being a lot more aggressive with the car, which is pretty cool to see, and I think him having, a podium under his belt, or a few podiums rather, and a win under his belt really helps too.
Absolutely. But yeah, all this fighting got Alonso and Norris into the fight too. They caught up to this whole battle for second place. So we had midfield teams in this now. Hamilton and Leclerc went side by side into cops where Hamilton and Verstappen crashed into each other last year. It was like a carbon copy of last year, except this time Hamilton didn't go wide.
Yeah.
So I think everybody kind of had flashbacks as we were approaching that corner there.
No, don't do it.
And they were side by side.
Yeah.
But everything was fine. Leclerc got ahead after cops and through Maggots and Beckett's, and then Hamilton was able to pass him again on the hanger straight with DRS. So Hamilton ended up in third place, and then on the last lap, Verstappen and Schumacher had quite a little tussle for seventh. And I think Verstappen got away with some kind of dirty driving. He shoved Mick off the track twice, and it wasn't even he closed the door. He wasn't significantly ahead. He literally shoved Mick off the track, and they were side by side. So, I'm not sure how I feel about that. I'm sure Verstappen was frustrated because his car was super slow through no fault of his own.
Yep.
But I think they said that he lost 10 to 15% of his rear downforce.
Oh, easily.
Which is quite significant.
Yeah.
And then Leclerc lost 5% of his downforce with his wing damage, but he was still the fastest car on track, other than I guess Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah. It was really a matter of towards the end just who could keep their car together from the damage earlier on.
Yeah. It was a crazy race, and definitely, in my opinion, the best one of the season so far.
Yep.
So the fastest lap went to Lewis Hamilton, and the Driver of the Day award went to Sergio Perez after he finished seventh after dropping back not seventh, he finished second.
There we go.
Dropping back at the beginning of the race because of his forced pit stop.
Yeah, great recovery drive from him.
For sure. So the results of the race, winning the British Grand Prix was Carlos Sainz, his maiden win, followed by Sergio Perez and Lewis Hamilton rounding off the podium. In fourth place was Charles Leclerc, followed by Alonso, Norris, Verstappen, Schumacher, Vettel, and Magnussen rounding off the top 10 points finishers. And then on the 11th through 14th was Stroll, Latifi, Ricciardo, and Tsunoda. Then we had 6 DNFs this race, with Esteban Ocon, Pierre Gasly, Valtteri Bottas, George Russell, Zhou Guanyu, and Alex Albon.
Yeah, so Carlos Sainz's 150th Grand Prix.
Yeah, his 150th Grand Prix, his first pole position and first win came on the same weekend.
Yeah, what a great time to convert that pole.
Yeah,
I know people were kind of.
He wasn't expecting it either.
Yeah, I know people. Even I was kind of questioning, what his role is going to be at Ferrari this season. if he couldn't keep up with Leclerc. But even though Leclerc had some problems, I think Sainz was pretty easily a shoe-in for first this race.
Yeah, I'd say so. It's just like it's really great that he got this and he got over that hurdle and got his first win. But one thing to kind of take note of is Verstappen had the damage and dropped back.
Yeah.
And Leclerc had damage and was still faster than Sainz and just got screwed over on strategy, really. And then, Perez and Hamilton right there. I would just say that, Sainz kind of got a little lucky.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just going to take some luck to win races for him because I just don't think he has the raw pace to beat Verstappen and Leclerc by himself.
Yeah, but, we'll see. Sergio Perez, once he started getting some more successes under his belt, we saw a marked change from him, so maybe Sainz will get a little bit of that confidence, too, off of this win, and we'll see him, start to pick at Leclerc a little more.
Yeah. Also, it was the first points finish for Mick Schumacher. I'm so happy for him.
Finally, yes. Yeah, we know he's a late bloomer, and I was hoping it was just a matter of time in F1, just like in F2, until he finally got points.
Yeah, I think this is a big mental hurdle for him that he's finally cleared. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him finishing in the points more. He looks really fast. Like he's been consistently on pace, if not faster than Kevin Magnussen.
Yeah, he's still making, he's still suffering from some rookie mistakes here and there. Trying some overtakes where he definitely shouldn't, and stuff like that. It's his second season, and last season was in a car that, didn't really offer the opportunity to practice your racecraft all that much against other drivers. So I think this season will be a great growth time for him, and I think next season we'll actually start seeing him be a little more competitive with the rest of the field.
Yeah, I hope so. Max Verstappen had a pretty rough race, picking up the damage. Not super great for his championship. He had a bad one, but luckily for them, Ferrari kind of messed up for Leclerc, who's his main championship rival right now.
Yeah.
So damage control for Red Bull, it wasn't too bad. I think Leclerc only managed to cut 6 points out of Verstappen's lead. So yeah, Ferrari didn't. They needed to capitalize on that, and they kind of just didn't.
Yeah.
Mercedes, like we said, has been fast again. Lewis is looking great. George Russell said that if he was able to continue, he would have still been able to finish sixth, even starting at the back.
I don't know about that, but his car looked a little bit damaged.
That's fair, but they had the red flag for an hour.
That is true.
So they could have fixed it. But, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. But they seem pretty confident, at least, and that they have good pace. And I think that's good for them. If you're a Mercedes fan, seeing the team with confidence and hope again is definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah. Do you see Hamilton swapping places with Russell in Drivers' Championship in the next couple of races, or do you think Russell's going to be holding him off for a while now?
It's hard to say. I think Hamilton might beat Russell this season, but I think it's going to go back and forth a lot. Hamilton definitely seems more comfortable with the car now than he was, whereas George, I think, was kind of just comfortable with whatever.
Yeah.
So I think George adapted better to the rules and adapted a little quicker than Hamilton did, but now that Hamilton's catching on, he's starting to do Lewis Hamilton things again.
Yeah, a little bit higher skill ceiling.
Yeah. But yeah, Tsunoda broke the golden rule, crashed into his teammate, and both of them then had a very poor race after that, with Gasly DNFing and Tsunoda finishing last.
Yeah, really not what AlphaTauri wanted after some very mixed results this season.
Yeah. Rough race for AlphaTauri. Also a rough race for Daniel Ricciardo in the McLaren, finishing just in front of Yuki Tsunoda. I feel so bad for the guy, man. He just cannot figure out that car.
No.
Uh, one thing to note is that he didn't have DRS after lap 30. His DRS system broke. Um, but that shouldn't put him back in 13th place when his teammate's finishing 7th. Like, DRS is an overtaking tool. It's not crucial to the speed of the car.
Yeah, no, it's not like IndyCar where push to pass is used pretty much whenever the driver needs to defend even.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate to see him drop back so far, especially behind Pierre Gasly. He went through 2 crashes this race in standings. But
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see.
All right, so let's go over some interesting championship standing swaps. Carlos Sainz moves up, passes George Russell into 4th place in the championship. So now it's Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes. You can see where the performance lies.
Yeah.
But it's pretty close between the top, 5 other than Max. They're all kind of 10 points apart from each other.
Yeah.
So it can go either way down there. Max has quite a lead, so it's going to take probably 2 DNFs or just poor races from him to catch up to him, which that doesn't really happen. I mean, DNFs do, but
yeah,
if he's finishing the race, he's usually first or second.
Yeah, I was going to say on the DNFs, don't jinx Red Bull with that. They'll make it happen.
Oh, they will, but so will Ferrari.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like Ferrari's super reliable engine package that we were seeing at the start is not having as much of an advantage as we thought it would.
Yeah. Yep. It seems like Ferrari does this all the time, and they have been in the last few seasons where they start off really strong and then they kind of start to unravel about halfway through the season and then just goes downhill. But hopefully they can turn this season around. They did just win this race.
Very true.
And then we've got the rest of the European circuit coming up, which is my favorite part of the season. Let's see, in Constructors, doesn't look like much has changed. It's still a tight battle between McLaren and Alpine.
Which is not a battle I thought would happen this season.
Yeah.
Everyone thought that McLaren would be fighting Ferrari. I think with the strategy calls Ferrari's been making, I think they thought they would be fighting McLaren.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. I've slowly been, warming up to Alpine. It's kind of fun to watch them race.
They are. Alonso definitely doesn't hold back. And Ocon is very, very measured and calculated, and he is very talented.
He's matured a lot in the past couple of seasons.
For sure. Yeah. So they got a good team there. Who knows if Fernando Alonso will be there for another year or two. I imagine he probably will if he wants to.
Yeah, I don't know if I see him moving up anywhere, but I definitely don't see him being traded away anywhere either.
Yeah. So, yeah, those are the battles right now. Mercedes coming back into the championship hunt. 65 points down on Ferrari. That's a good chunk. But then again, Ferrari's about the same distance away from Red Bull. So you got pretty even spread across the top 3. And then it goes down to 73 points at McLaren. So they are 131 points behind Mercedes in third place.
They're saying there's a chance they could get to third place.
It would take some total wolf table smashing for that to happen. But yep, so that's Formula One for this week. Let's go over the overtake of the week. I gave it to Aleix Espargaro on Jack Miller and Brad Binder, I think it was. I have Johan Zarco in the script, but that's not even close to right. In Assen.
Yeah,
another just again.
I'll let you go.
Oh, I was just gonna say it was just one of the craziest overtakes I've seen in terms of last corner, last lap kind of stuff. And the fact that it was a double overtake just made it so much better.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, double overtakes in MotoGP are just so brave.
Yeah, it takes guts. You gotta lick the stamp and send it.
Yep.
Um, okay, pit stop championship time. In first place, back on form, Sergio Perez. um, and then rounding off the top 10 was Carlos Sainz, Nicholas Latifi, Sebastian Vettel, Lance Stroll, Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, Charles Leclerc, and Lewis Hamilton.
Impressive showing from Nicholas Latifi and Williams.
Yes.
Nicholas Latifi has just been so fast in those pit changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Williams has always been pretty good at pit stops. They've kind of dropped back this year, actually, but Red Bull is very much still they still have a commanding lead in both the drivers and constructors pit stop championships. Perez is 99 points ahead of Verstappen in second place. And then it's just kind of a random assortment of teams from there on out. But both Red Bulls at the top. And then, let's see, Red Bull is ahead of McLaren in second place, and they're ahead by 161 points. Which is, I mean, at halfway through the season, that's almost insurmountable.
Yeah, no, I don't think McLaren has a chance.
No, it's gonna. I think Red Bull's already won the pit stop championship pretty much. But we'll see. Anything can happen. Maybe we get these 5-second Red Bull pit stops for the rest of the season. That would be entertaining.
Yeah, what McLaren needs to win is a Bottas 5-day pit stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's go on to our predictions. From last week, it was me and Daniel. On the last episode. After looking at Daniel's predictions, he actually nailed it if Verstappen didn't pick up the damage.
Yeah, can I have Daniel just phone in for mine today?
Maybe on the next one.
I'm liking the spread.
I think he's working. What's that?
I'm liking the spread. I think he might be better at this than I am.
Yeah, he didn't get any...
Oh, yeah, he even had Alonso as his dark horse.
Yeah, that's the only one he technically got right, but he did get the entire order right from Sainz down to Alonso. Except he just put them shifted down one because he said Verstappen was going to win this race. So I'm going to give this one to Daniel before I even tell you mine. I had Leclerc, Verstappen, Sainz, Perez, and Russell, with Ocon as my dark horse. The top 5 finishers were Sainz, Perez, Hamilton, Leclerc, and Alonso. Fastest lap went to Lewis Hamilton. I said Charles Leclerc, and he said Carlos Sainz. And driver of the day went to Sergio Perez. I said George Russell, and he said Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, although I would have been fine giving driver of the day to Lewis Hamilton. He had
absolutely.
a pretty good race. I think it was a toss between him and Perez.
I think so too. I'm kind of surprised he didn't win it, considering it was the British Grand Prix.
Yeah, Silverstone? That's impressive.
Yeah. All right. Austria, one of my favorite tracks of the season.
Yep. Yeah, Red Bull's got that home race advantage.
Mm-hmm. Orange Army is going to be there in full force.
Yep.
It's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, would you like to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. I don't see Verstappen not winning this. Then I'm going to give second to Sergio Perez, and then third to Leclerc, fourth to George Russell, and then fifth to Sainz, with my dark horse being Lewis Hamilton.
Alrighty. I think I'm going to swap it up a little bit. I think I'll give first to Sergio Perez, and then second to Max Verstappen. And then I'm going to put... Now this is... I almost want to shake it up a little bit. I'm going to go out of my way, and I'm going to say Hamilton third, Leclerc fourth, Sainz fifth, with George Russell as my dark horse.
Okay. Also, before we forget, stats update, because I know Ben loves stats. George Russell has broken his top 5 finish streak.
No, that was one of my last statistics.
Yep. Unfortunately, he DNF'd in Britain, so there goes that one. But it was a very impressive streak of, I think, 10 races.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. What am I gonna have to do now? Maybe Joe DNFs.
It could be Joe DNFs.
That feels consistent enough to
track that ratio.
Yeah. I'll have to do some research.
Yeah. All right. Fastest lap. I'm gonna give it to. I'll give that one to Verstappen as well.
Yeah, I gotta say Verstappen.
And driver of the day. Let's. I'm gonna say Sergio Perez for driver of the day.
I'm gonna try to give a win to AlphaTauri. I'm gonna say Pierre Gasly as driver of the day.
Okay.
I think if he gets anywhere close to, 5th or 6th place, I know I don't have him up there in my top 5, but if he gets anywhere close to that, given the way he's been qualifying, I think that'll warrant a driver of the day for him.
Yep. Cool. Alrighty. Well, do you have anything else you'd like to tell the lovely people before we sign out, Ben?
Oh man, no, I think I said my piece.
Awesome. Well, it's very good to have you back.
Good to be back.
Glad you had fun on your trip. Yep, glad to be doing this again. Thank you everybody so much for listening to this episode of RevHang. If you enjoyed it, leave a like or rating on the platform you listened on. It really helps us out. If you'd like to follow our thoughts and opinions on the motorsport world, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at RevHang Media. If you have any thoughts or questions about racing or even about us, post a tweet at #RevHangPodcast and we may feature your question on the next show. We would absolutely love to interact with you guys and talk to you. You can follow Ben on Instagram at BenjiMeetsWorld and or myself at 2n_squared. While you're at it, go check out our website at RevHang.com, where you can find our calendar of upcoming races, updated standings for the racing series we talk about, along with our often terrible predictions for the F1 season. We'll return in a week to talk about the Austrian Grand Prix, but until then, I have been Nathan.
And I've been Ben.
Thanks for hanging out.
See you later, guys.